Hi everyone and welcome to Moviana. Today I gonna to summury, a Chinese drama. The movie is centered on a famous local restaurant called the 7 in Spring Avenue. Still has the talented chef of the Skyco restaurant and specializes in southern cuisine. A television presenter presents the 30-year-old restaurant and its chef in a Sky cooking show. Shows his talent at national television even though he is already popular as the best chef in all Spring Avenue. By his side, his uni friend is also introduced to LG people. Usually the financial aspect of Sky Restaurant is very demanding on food quality and time they offer their customers, which is part of why the restaurant's so popular. Most of the time it is so good that you have to queue outside the restaurant. That day a customer, Ray Polly, bursts into the restaurant. After breaking the queue, Sky refuses to serve him even though the customer sells himself power and all the money he has. Before he leaves, the man mocks their little restaurant and reveals that without a boss invited a world-class chef to open a 3-star restaurant opposite theirs. This idea scares United, but she doesn't seize there that a bluffing. During this time in France, the crowned king and queen welcomes their newborn. They organize a big ball to celebrate the birth and a vacuum a world-renowned chef in the kitchen, and to invite them in presents us the chef in question. Paulin is a Michelin-starred Korean chef trained in France. Paul has a particular way of cooking and which is not limited to a particular style. He mixes the cuisines of different countries and thus creates innovative places for the dish of the chef. He offers the arena a dessert that looks like a red egg but is filled with mashed mangoes and coconuts. The dish is inspired by tradition, which symbolizes red eggs, a blessing for the newborn. The delicious dish and that meaning touches the hearts of the kingdoms, and they applaud the brilliant work of Paul. After this successful ball for his Jersey assistant returns to the restaurant where he currently works. The owner and their colleagues greeted them with cheers, congratulating them on their success. The owner announced also that he promised Paul as executive chef of all the Art Nouveau franchise. It's a big step for him, but to everyone's surprise he declines the offer. Paul wants to go back to Asia to follow a bigger and higher ambition. Jersey and he were invited by a Chinese businessman who want to open a 3-star restaurant. The staff supports their decision and their wish a good start back in spring. Welcome to one of Sky's regular customers. The form that the rumor of a new restaurant being set up is true. The news is bittersweet for Sky as he wants his little colony to grow, but a new restaurant would mean less customers and more competition. When Sky was 10, his dad used to be paid to insult him because he had no cooking skills. One day he dropped out of Sky and chose to pursuing his culinary career rather than being a dad on the pretext that Sky couldn't even make a bowl of noodles. Goes down since Uncle 7, the master owns restaurant 7, took care of him. He also taught Sky everything he must have known about food. Unlike his father, currently Sky has not met his father for over 20 years and does not plan to reconcile with him. The next morning, Paul arrives in Hong Kong and goes to the market looking for a big grouper. The vendor only has one and decides to sell it to Sky, knowing he will cook it better for the argument, insisting that a trade-in shouldn't be biased. He argues a bit before the vendor cuts the fish in half for the two of them. A few weeks later, it's the opening ceremony of the stellar 3-star restaurant located just opposite Shavana Restaurant. The president and the group's manager arrives, both as the restaurant's first guest, and are greeted by Paul and Jersey. At the same time, Restaurant 7's employees start announcing the various discount deals he is offering for the next week. When the agents of Stellar Restaurant Security tries to stop them, a conflict erupts. This draws Paul's attention and customers who come out to see what's going on. When the conversation escalates, Jersey suggests having a contest to see who is the best cook. Sky Shoulder recognizes himself from the market and accepts the challenge. He decides to engage in a fish cutting contest. Paul starts and skillfully removes all the ribs from a fish in no time. Then Sky takes the same fish and cuts it into regular pieces in less than a minute. The crowd cheers and even Paul is impressed. The president of the bed group must announce the results in an impartial manner. He claims that the real results will only be announced during the International Chef Competition Challenge to none. The two chiefs participated. He also announces that he plans to take the entire colony of Spring Avenue, can remove all buildings and modernize it if Sky wins the competition. The president is ready to withdraw his project to preserve the heritage of the colony. On the other hand, if Paul Guardian, he will just go to the end of his project, the future of the colony being in his hands. Sky is under pressure, but he is determined to do his best. In the following days, the number of customers of the 7 restaurant decreased. Uni fears that the restaurant will soon go bankrupt, but Sky assures him that it is not possible. He gives him the example of the snails and burgundy snails, saying there will always be people who liked one more than the other. They don't need to change their food to be better than the stellar restaurant because there are always customers who preferred the next day. Sky yucks when he goes to the market and discovers that the stellar restaurant has bought all the good fish. The day is frustrating for the employees of the 7 restaurant until they learn that Sky has been selected for the cooking competition he will soon face. The 90 minutes are intense because the 2 cooks show great know-how in the preparation of their respective dishes. Sky cuts the inside of the duck without any effort and removing it efficiently, which leaves the audience for you. In the end, he cooks the duck in salt and breaks off the extra layer to reveal a well-done duck with vegetable stuffing. The judges taste it and seem to be more impressed by Sky's duck than by Paul's sherbet. At the time of voting, Paul receives 3.9 and a huge says out of 10, making a total of 37 points. Just after, Sky receives 2.10 from the first 2 judges. The third gives him 9, but the final judge only gives him an 8 as the 2 chefs are tied at 2 points. The head judge makes the executive decision to make Paul the winner because the presentation of his dish was superior to Sky's, which was bland. Although the Paul's victory should have consolidated his abilities as a cook, things do not go as planned. As he celebrates their victory, the manager informs Paul that he wants to replace him with a Jersey to take part in the end. According to him, a woman is much more attractive in the media than a man. When Paul time to defend his position as chef, Jersey explains that he has had difficulty tasting certain flavors, such as salty. For several months he has been using a notebook containing all of her recipes to cook and can't do anything on her own. Jersey also reveals that she never wanted to befriend Paul and will only be bonded to him to surpass him. As a betrayed chef is injured, Paul leaves the restaurant in time but doesn't look back. That night, Sky comes across a polyvers outside a stadium. They forget their rivalry for a few minutes and share their past and their problems. Paul reveals that his father was a great chef and that his last wish was for Paul to become like him. Sky also tell him about his relationship with Mountain. After the conversation, he finds mutual respect for each other. He also throws bottles of alcohol in Montaigne's picture on a billboard while swearing at him. Korean Paul doesn't want to drop out of the competition yet, as he can't participate as a representative of the stellar restaurant. He decides to participate as an individual chef. After demystifying the regulation, he asks the Mescan to join him for the semi-finals. At the same time, the manager of Stellar is at the restaurant 7 to encourage Uncle 7 to his drawings restaurant. To the group reads it is then that Paul and Skya appear and announce their partnership. Paul also reminds the manager that as the winner of the competition he can compete in the championships for the following weeks. Sky shoulders work and train together. They try each other's style of cooking and achieve a ground of agreement on the modernization of traditional cuisine. The semi-final of the culinary competition is held at the Studio City Casino in Macau. Who will win the event will have to face the current god of cooking Mount Go. The competition begins. Stairs. Paul uses their 2 culinary strengths to compete against 4 other great chefs who have come from different parts of the world in one way or another. The group also reads gets Mario into the competition. She cooks very carefully to prove she's better than Paul. She cooks a dish of oysters with mousse when frozen, which the judges compliment initially, but he seems to find mediocre. Once served during this time, Paul's stopover creates a tofu my powder deconstructs. Notebook sense of taste must determine flavor of ingredients, while Paul's understanding of culinary art helps determine techniques and processes used together. He creates traditional dish with design modern. The judges complete the dish in detail and are very impressed with it. In the end, he wins the competition and achieves the final as everyone applauds. Paul looks at Jersey holding his head down, ashamed of having betrayed him and not being able to prove himself for the teacher's final. Only one boss can face Montaigne. Paul thinks that because of his lack of taste he is not eligible to participate. He also knows that Sky's desire to beat Montaigne is very personal. That's why he offers him to face Montaigne in the final. The next day, Sky comes face to face with his father. The contest asks them to cook whatever they want in an hour. Father and Fitness don't change a word before the competition starts. Mountain immediately starts cooking, but this notebook's distracted by his thoughts. He remembers how Mountain abandoned him and how much the people of the neighborhood mean to him. These thoughts overwhelm him until he concentrates on bringing him to his senses. Mountain splashes his sweet son's face. The gesture brings Sky back, and he immediately gets to making dough at the end of the hour, throwing a party. An aesthetic sugar display of the melting front with a flower at the top. On the other hand, Sky's dish is a little simpler but personal. He makes noodles like the one Montaigne used to make years ago before he abandoned his son. The judges taste Montaigne's dish and are impressed with it. However, Sky never hands them without a dish. Instead, he gives the bowl of noodles to Montaigne. Ride the mange and was better off remembering what the noodles represent. Finally, he has no choice but to recognize his son's talent in the culinary arts. The winner of the competition is unclear, as the judges envy ever been able to taste the dishes. In the next scene, we see that a crowd has gathered in front of the restaurant 7 to celebrate the Chinese New Year. He enjoys a meal prepared by Sky Shoulder with family. Subscribe to receive more videos as this one. Activate notifications and leave a comment to help the channel. Thank you for your attention.